one of my core beliefs is that life and love, it's not just shaped by big moments alone, but by small everyday moments. And I like to, remind my clients also that connection is also built in small moments. When it comes to photography and being seen and all of that, how can this be implemented into kind of everyday life as opposed to like the big portraits that we'll take either for special occasions or for holidays or for headshots, but really in everyday moments, how can people incorporate more of that?
I would say break some rules. I would say, like, when you're taking a selfie to do a certain position or a certain way, try something else. Go shopping for clothes with a friend and have them pick out a wardrobe for you. You know what I mean? Invest in yourself and challenge yourself to all the multiplicity of who we are as human beings. What does it look like if you're sad? What does it look like if you're angry? Give yourself permission to do some ugly things, some unconventional things in a safe way, and see what happens, when you push the line a little bit.
Welcome to Life and Love by Design. I'm life and relationship coach Odette Coronel. This podcast is for individuals and couples who are done living on autopilot, who are ready to understand the patterns shaping their relationships, their choices, and their sense of self, and redesign them with purpose and intention. Here, we don't just talk about what's hard. We name what's actually happening beneath it and what to do about it. And if you start recognizing yourself or your relationship in these conversations, know that this is the exact work that I do with my private coaching clients, individuals and couples who are ready for real change. Because a meaningful life and connected relationships don't happen by default. They're designed. So let's begin. Welcome back to Life and Love by Design, the podcast where we explore how to live and love with intention, starting with the relationship with yourself. In my work as a life coach and a relationship coach, I spend so much time helping people reconnect with who they are beneath their roles and expectations and survival mode. And one theme that comes up again and again is that people don't feel truly seen. So today's conversation feels especially meaningful because my guest today is Jennifer Bladel. She is an artist, photographer, travel aficionado, and the founder of Village Studio Photos. For more than a decade, Jennifer has built her company while traveling the world. She just shared that she just got back from Costa Rica, which is so cool. And she's also been raising her daughter and working closely with entrepreneurs and small business owners and women that want to be seen in a way that actually reflects who they are. She doesn't just take photos, she creates experiences that help people reconnect with their identity, their confidence, and their story. So, Jennifer, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Odette. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And yes, it's a great time to be alive.
Yeah, great. Nice to have you here. How did you come to photography? It seems just from the work that, I've seen some of your work and stuff like that. It seems like it's not just a profession, but it's really more of like a form of expression and purpose for you. So how did you come to that?
Yes, it's definitely a calling. It's definitely a fire within. I grew up in a world where everyone was either a teacher or a doctor or a nurse, worked in an office, and I was like, I want nothing to do with this. I tried and I just couldn't put myself in the box. I felt like I was dying. And so my friends, well, no, my family were like, Jen, you're gonna have such a hard life. And I was like, I think I would have a hard life, otherwise. But so right from high school, I was homeschooled for high school, and that really helped set me up for entrepreneurship in the way I was able to see time and scheduling and really managing workload and workflow. And then also gearing my life and my day according to the activities that I want, that were relevant, that were important to me, and that were really purpose driven. And so after high school, I went to college and I graduated from Montclair State after doing a year in Ohio. And I was graduated with art and life drawing, and my whole family was like, "Jen, what in the world are you gonna do with life drawing? That seems so irrelevant."
That doesn't sound too
Um,
practical.
and I just really trusted God in my process. And I was like, I don't know why I need to be here, but I know I do. And just taking that next step. And so after college, I was set with a mural artist. I was an apprentice to a mural artist, and he taught me how to paint. And so that just opened up a whole new level of expression for me in being able to assess the world around me and be able to put it in a 2D format. And really, as an artist, it's a creative way to come into a situation, and that's really a blanket statement for a lot of different areas, not just a painting or a photograph. And so I was doing paintings in restaurants and homes in Bergen County. And then the company dissolved. I was doing a few murals of my own in churches and restaurants. And then I got hired by a portrait company. So before this, I really never picked up a camera, really had no interest, really never saw it as art. And but the lifestyle was a lot more conducive to raising a family, and I understood the workflow more, the customer relationship. And so from there, I learned everything I could. I was going to people's homes. I was like doing 5 appointments a day. It was crazy, crazy. And once I learned everything I could there, I said thank you. And I went out on my own, had a couple other studio experiences, but really then took the whole in order to formulate my own company and how I was coming to my clients.
Wow, yes, and it's really apparent that you truly are an artist at your core,
At
right?
my core,
And
at
it's
my core.
interesting that you used to do that you or you not used to do, but you also do paintings and murals and, things like that, which is really interesting, and then it led you to photography, but I love what you shared about how even when you picked your major in college, your family was like, "What are you gonna do with that?" And, because like I said before, it doesn't seem practical, but when you do instead of what is expected of you or what you think you should do and you do what calls you is calling to you, it's gonna lead to where you need to be. You will just trust that you're gonna land in the right place, which sounds like
Exactly.
that's how I see living by design rather than by default.
I love
So,
that, I love that. Yeah, you're
yeah.
being intentional with who you're surrounding yourself with, what spaces you're in, what your interests are, and I feel like even throughout my whole life, like, even in relationships and other things, like, as the more that I knew myself and the more I knew what I wanted, the more intentional I can be in how I showed up, in where I showed up, in what came out of my mouth, in how I presented myself, and then I would be met as such. And so learning that, I mean, I even have like my paints right behind us.
Mhm.
I was like
Beautiful.
surrounded by art and really made a life based on that. And one of the amazing things is like I was saying before, how art is really pervasive over so many things. And so taking that into the photography, it it really transformed how my client experiences. And I wanted to tell you this story of how I had it was early last year in or actually 2024, and I had a headshot event. There was 10 women, and we were taking their headshots, and I had hair there, makeup, artist, stylist, wardrobe. I brought some of my own personal pieces, and really I want to have just like a fun time and then really get people's personalities out. And it really conveys very nicely in the photographs, because being in front of the camera can be very difficult, very raw, very vulnerable. And so I'm trying to make it fun and like a community thing. Like, we're doing this together. I left that event with people crying. And
Mm.
I was like, okay, well, this is wrong. This shouldn't happen. Where did I go wrong or not wrong? And then It was such a catalyst moment because I had done an assessment for 2023 and I had a lot of mental health days. I felt like I was getting too comfortable in myself and my work. And so what I did, I emptied out my bank account. I was like, Jen, you started from absolutely nothing and built this from nothing. I need you to get that hustle back and go back to that state of mind and get uncomfortable. And so I feel like I get uncomfortable to help my clients get uncomfortable and then build from there. And so I emptied my bank account. I put it in savings where I couldn't touch, in investments, and then the rest I spent on a photography conference in Colorado, with one of my mentors who is now a friend. And he just became a mentor after that. I proposed this. I told him this whole situation of what happened, and I had another headshot event like the next week, and I didn't want the same results. And so what ended up happening, he told me, John, he was like, you can offer whatever you want. If the person in front of you is not ready to receive, they won't. So
Mm,
what it really pressed upon me was what I was doing was not just taking a photograph. I was not just taking headshots. I was setting a tone. I was setting a space where people could be themselves, where they could be comfortable, where they could show up as they were, as they who they wanted to be, and envision something more than how they normally see themselves in the mirror or with, the voices in their head of what other people have told them, right? Which can be oftentimes very limiting. And so for this next event, I really changed then my whole work flow on how I handle my clients and their experience, with more touch points, with more hand holding before, during, and after. And a lot of
yeah.
clients come to me and say, "Thank you for like, I mean, feel so comfortable," and that's the best
Yeah,
compliment
because
you
it's
can
so
give.
vulnerable, right? When you
It
have
is
your
so
picture
vulnerable.
taken, it's not just about the picture. It's deeper and you feel so vulnerable. So
Yes.
I like that you say that it sounds like you really make your clients feel comfortable and feel space. Even in my coaching, like that's the very fundamental thing. My clients need to feel safe before
Yes.
they can open up, before we get into whatever issues we're going to explore. Like you have to have that safety. But with the photography, what do you think it is about being seen and having that image of yourself that makes people so emotional and so uncomfortable sometimes?
I think part of it is they feel like they're going under a microscope. And part of it is also all of the judgments we have of ourselves come to the forefront. How do I look? Is my hair right? What is this? All my insecurities feel like they are laid out to the public.
Mm,
And so it's a really personal journey. It's a very emotional one. One
yeah.
that I come to understand in
Yeah.
a very empathetic way, because I'm terrible at taking my own
Yeah.
picture.
And
It's
we're
hard
not
for
used to seeing ourselves, right? We're used to seeing
no,
other people. And then
no.
I find that even in myself, when I see pictures of myself, or I even, watch back one of my videos or listen to the sound of my voice, I tend to zero in on the things that I don't like. And
Exactly.
and my clients, the same thing. It's almost like we have a bias for the things that we don't like. And that's what we notice in ourselves rather than pointing out the things that we do love about ourselves.
Exactly. And you said be seen. And I just, yeah, and you mentioned that in the introduction as well. It's
Yeah.
like you help people be seen. There's a filter on our own eyes. There's a bias in our own eyes. And yes, we tend to like micro pick, the little
Yeah.
thing that's wrong, to lose sight in the whole picture, in the whole beauty, in the whole like amazing divine nature that we are as human beings. And so part of the work is getting out of your own head, getting out of your own way, which I'm sure you work with your clients
Yeah.
on
Mhm.
often as well, in order to see yourself in a different way, see yourself in
Right.
a different light. And I feel, Odette, like we get so caught up in that, and it's a cycle, right? And you're on repeat and you're on a routine, and you need a catalyst, whatever it could be. a catalyst to stop you in your thoughts and your train of thoughts in how you normally do things so you can take a different perspective, you know? So you could literally see it from a different angle and then you can react and respond in a different way. You give yourself a chance to do something new.
Right, you see another side of yourself, another expression of yourself, and, it's just like in coaching, when my clients come in and they're just feeling disconnected or they're feeling broken, and then that's how they start off feeling, but, with time, that transformation happens, and then they start seeing themselves in a more powerful way, and they realize, I'm not broken. And they
Yes.
experience that transformation, and I can see the power of that in photography, especially the way that you capture them. It helps them to see themselves in a way that, I can imagine even for entrepreneurs taking headshots or doing the professional shots that have to do with their businesses, how that can feel really empowering for them as well, and be an expression of what they wanna represent, how they wanna represent their business and themselves.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, it is. And you hit the nail on the head. It does. It crosses over both personal and professional. And I'm sure you know as an entrepreneur, those things, your personal growth and your professional growth run in tandem with each
Oh,
other.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
could be a little bit more advanced personally, and then your professional development catches up and maybe overpasses, and then your personal has to. You can't be so far
Yeah.
apart. They go hand in hand for sure.
If you're doing all the right things, you're showing up, you're holding it together, you're being capable and responsible, and yet something in your life and relationships or your marriage still feels off, then give me a few seconds of your time because this message is for you. Relationships don't usually fall apart because of one big event. More often, it's the small everyday moments when we stop being intentional, or we stop really listening, or we stop choosing connection. Those are the things that create distance over time. I work with thoughtful, high functioning individuals and couples who aren't broken, but they're feeling disconnected or misaligned or just wondering how they got here. In my coaching, we slow things down. We try to understand what's happening beneath the surface. We identify the patterns that are shaping your relationships and your choices, and then we intentionally design what comes next. So if you're listening and you're thinking, this feels like me, that's not an accident. I offer a complimentary relationship and life alignment audit. It's a focused 45-minute conversation where I'm going to help you gain clarity and identify what comes next. You can book your session by visiting odettecoronel.com. I would love to connect with you. Yeah, because we're like a whole human being, right? We're not just the entrepreneur and we're not just the mom or the human being. We're an entire human being. And I love that you mentioned before about with yourself, just in your own experience, how you were willing to be uncomfortable in
Yes.
order to get to where you are. And I also want to mention that you invested in yourself. Like you had the self-awareness in what you needed to do and you were willing to just take everything that you had and make the investments so that you can create the business that you wanted to create. I just wanted to make sure that I acknowledged that before because I wanted to say it and I and I
Oh,
and
thank
I
you.
didn't mention it and I think that that's great. What do you think? Do you work with I know you in your work you did an edition or some kind of a limited edition of
Yes.
portraits of 40 over 40
40 over
and
40.
yeah, and women and redefining women's beauty. What was it that inspired that project?
So that situation I was telling you about before
Mm,
catapulted my whole business. And so I'm going to tell you another story that happened for one of the clients in this second headshot event. She, was in her 60s, and I say that in and what I've been learning also is, like, the generations and the differences, and we can talk about that a little later, but, she was in her 60s, we had just got done with maybe 4 or 5 different outfit wardrobe sets, her last one, she was going to be wearing a black and white houndstooth coat, and she had, like, a white underneath. Oh, a little bit similar to this. This is blue, but she was in black. And I said, "Kathleen, you need to wear a red lip with this. Black, white,
mm,
and red, like, it was just made for it." She said, "No, no, 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 no. There's no way. I I can't wear red. I can't wear
mm,
red." I've never worn red because you know what red means." And I'm like, "What are you even talking about?"
Oh,
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
yes, this really, like, heavy bond with, something that had nothing to do with her. She was a professor, she was a speaker, goes on tour to different campuses, university campuses, and speaks and lectures, and she's like, "I can't be associated with, someone who," and I was like, "Okay, so our makeup artist is right over here. I'm just gonna have you play, okay? Let's just try it out. If you hate it, we'll just delete it later, the pictures later, right?"
Yeah.
So she goes out, she gets the red lip on, and she has like blonde hair. She comes in the room and there's some other women there, and we all our jaws just dropped. She looked like Taylor Swift.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
it was a complete
Yeah.
makeover, and the permission to wear red, she took a selfie, she sent it to her husband, he didn't even recognize her, he was like, "Wow, this is, like, fire," and we did the photographs, she ended up liking one of them, which is fine, but just even if she didn't even like that one, the
Yeah.
permission to try something and not
Yeah.
be like, so
Well,
caught
what's
up in
interesting is that, yeah, that belief that she had about what it meant
very
for her
strong.
to wear the color red, right? To wear that
Yes,
red lipstick, what she made that mean. And when she gave herself the permission to maybe step out of her comfort zone a little bit and give it a try, it not just impacts how she looked, but I'm sure it impacted how she felt.
correct. And not even just for that instance specifically in her life. Imagine all the other stories she's telling herself, "Oh, I
Right.
can't do that. I shouldn't do that." If and so just by doing that one little thing, and this is a question I will ask my clients. If you had no limits, where would you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
Right.
Where would you see yourself in a year? If you had no limits, if money wasn't an option, if time was unlimited, if, weight or health or, all the other things that we can make excuses for holding back on our dreams, if you were to suspend your relationship with that,
Yeah.
who would you be? What
Right.
would you be? What would you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
And that question has been so powerful, Odette. So powerful in just uncovering the stories, and they're all stories.
They're all
And
stories, yeah, that
you
can either
know
empower us or they could limit us. And when
exactly,
we're willing to explore them and then challenge them, we realize that there's other possibilities.
exactly. And then you start to ask yourself, who's the real storyteller here?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love the idea of you taking that ownership of your own story and
Exactly.
you deciding to define yourself. And I think what happens, I work with a lot of women that are in different midlife transitions or they are, raising children or they're busy with their jobs and they're doing all these things and they kind of lose themselves in those roles
In the
and they
roles.
start asking themselves, like who am I? Who am I really? Because you're not just a mom or you're not just an entrepreneur, you get to decide who you are. And, one of my core beliefs is that life and love, it's not just shaped by big moments alone, but by small everyday moments. And I like to, remind my clients also that connection is also built in small moments. When
Mhm.
it comes to photography and being seen and all of that, how can this be implemented into kind of everyday life as opposed to like the big portraits that we'll take either for special occasions or for holidays or for headshots, but really in everyday moments, how can people incorporate more of that?
I would say break some rules. I would say, like, when you're taking a selfie to do a certain position or a certain way, try something else. Go shopping for clothes with a friend and have them pick out a wardrobe for you. You know what I mean? Invest in yourself and challenge yourself to all the multiplicity of who we are as human beings. What does it look like if you're sad? What does it look like if you're angry? Give yourself permission to do some ugly things, some unconventional things in a safe way and see what happens, when you push the line a little bit.
And maybe
Right, add
capture it, like,
and
like
capture
you're
it,
saying, like,
yeah,
capture it
and
just to see what it looks like.
yes, and it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be for the world. This is not for the world, this is not for showcase, this is for you.
For
This
yourself.
this is
Yeah.
for you documented, and you're gonna live. You're gonna survive. You're going,
Yeah.
be okay. What happens right now, I seem to be in my humble era. Like I had a whole series of things happen that were not in my control. And thank God they weren't in my control because I'm seeing how little control I do have. And what control I do have, it's all built within a network and a community of such loving, great, gracious people that I'm so blessed to have in my life. And it's just this, yeah, situation that happened. Ended up losing my car. I got into a
Oh,
really bad
no.
accident, medical
Hmm.
things in October, and my whole life just like shifted around. And I came to a place of real need, in a place where like I like really didn't want to be at this point in my life and here downgrading, looking like that. And I'm like, you know what? But I'm here. I'm able
Yeah.
to walk. I was, thank God, able to walk away from this horrible accident, and my daughter was with me and she's able to walk too, and just it's brought about a humility and gratitude that we're not given tomorrow. We're not given a
Yeah.
guarantee of things, and to be just so gracious for what we have been given in order to give more.
Yeah.
And really, like, I just, through my travels, I've just seen the abundance that God has given to us in the earth and in each other. And it's like, if we can never outdo God in generosity, why not lean into that a little bit more? And
Yeah.
so, for the situation I told you about before, where I emptied out my bank account, after I changed my practice, I ended up recovering all of what I had let go in like
Mhm.
a month or 2. And it was
Wow.
just like, okay, when you trust and lean into the process and lean into the purpose that God has given you, trust that that is where you are supposed to be, and that is what is going to be blessed and flourish and give abundance, not just to you, but to the people you serve, to the people who
Yeah.
you show up with, to the people who are in your life. And it's contagious, right? It just
Yeah,
like
I love
everybody,
that. Yeah, and it goes back to service, right? Doing things from a place
for
of
sure.
service. Your own passion and what fills you up, but also from that space of service. And when that is truly your intention, I truly believe that that really comes back to you. And I'm really glad that you and your daughter are okay.
Thank you.
And, sometimes in those difficult moments, that's when we learn the most. That's when we become the most grateful and we realize what really matters in life and what we appreciate the most.
For
And,
sure.
the one thing that I remind my clients of all the time is even when we're going through these difficult situations, it's a stage or a season that you're in, but it will pass.
It will pass.
It will pass, and you will gain lessons from it, you will gain little blessings from it, even though it doesn't seem like it in the moment.
Yes. And a nod to your work as well. Seeing the strength that you can have, investing in yourself, seeing yourself in these multiple different ways, and uncovering that strength, uncovering that beauty, uncovering that joy, and what makes you alive helps you have what I call texture, just like things to
Mm,
hold on to when things get sticky or blurry or, a little
yeah,
bit foggy, to keep you held together. And I
yeah,
really want to encourage like people who are listening to this to take a moment and really sort of assess what would those things be if I were in a state where I, didn't have so much control over my feelings. How would my thoughts, how could I control my thoughts in holding on to the good things that I have in my life, in focusing on gratitude and appreciation, and recognizing that, this is not forever, this is not who I am, this is just going to be limited to a certain period of time.
yeah, exactly, exactly, I love that, and, going back to why I think, my work is so powerful and your work is so powerful, I think that at the core, we all do want to be able to be our authentic selves. And be seen, and we don't always feel that we're able to. We're in the what we should be doing or what we think is expected of us. And I think that we also forget who we are. We don't know after a while. We get so lost in all of that, then we don't know. So I think that through your work and through my work, we help people kind of remember who they are and really reconnect with themselves on such a deep level. And then once you know who you are and you can really express yourself and, think and feel and behave from that space of knowing who you are, like everything changes and you
It
just have
does.
such a better experience of the world and your relationships. How do you see relationships? I'm a relationship coach and all that. How do you see relationships being impacted in terms of photography and just capturing memories and being seen when people allow themselves to be seen?
Yeah, no, that's a great question and really purpose driven. It's introspective, it's individual, but it's collective too. And I feel like in the world that we're living in, it is ever more important to know yourself and to really live in that purpose. With the dawn of AI, with robots, with, coming into a very authoritarian administration and government, like an individuality that is focused on purpose, on giving, on truth, on love impacts not only the individual, but everyone collectively. If we all showed up as our true selves, I mean, I feel like it would
Yeah,
just
it's
empower the whole
it's
world.
contagious, right?
It
Like
is.
when you're truly happy, when you feel you can truly be yourself and you show up, with your partner in that way or with your children or with family members or with your clients, it really impacts how other people start to feel about themselves and it impacts the dynamic that you have in that relationship. It's
For
so
sure.
powerful. Yeah.
The my friend Johnny, who he was the photographer who I went to the conference with, he has a phrase is art is life, life is art. And for the people who don't feel like they're artists, you are an artist. You are carving your life. You're making words. Your relationships are art. How you're coming to them is an art form in and of itself. And we're able to create this to remember like the control that we have, the choices that we have, the freedoms that we have is very, very important in building a legacy. And that's really what we're doing. And I think you kind of touched upon that, the little moments that make up the big moments. And
Yeah.
this is what we're building for something much longer than we're going to be here on this earth.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely the little moments that you do consistently that have the biggest impact. And I love that you said that it's also about legacy because when you feel truly seen and who and you can show up in the way that is truly authentic to you, it's a great foundation to building that legacy and documenting it for yourself and for, generations to come, which is great. How do you see photography and all of that changing with all the new technology that's happening and all of that? How do we stay grounded in that purpose? Because what I find is, I'm going back to when I was a kid and back in the day when we took photos, it was about capturing the memory and we weren't so obsessed about it looking perfectly. We didn't know what it was gonna look like because you had to take the camera, the film to get developed, and you didn't see it for a week or 2, and by the time you saw it, you were like, "Oh, yeah, that was a great moment," and you were not upset because, you had your eyes closed or whatever, like, maybe you weren't thrilled about it, but it wasn't like a big deal. Whereas now I feel like we sometimes lose capturing the memory and what's important about it, and we're more focused on making sure we have the right filter and that we look perfectly and all of that. So how do you see that changing with technology and impacting our ability to really be seen
Yeah,
authentically because of all of this that we have available to us now?
it's a great question. Technology is a tool and it's going to uncover how whatever it is inside and how you use it, right? And
Mm,
so if you're coming into this with insecurities, you're going to be adding filters. You're not going to want to see imperfections, right?
mm,
Um to try to change your mindset and even maybe using it as like a therapy tool, how to make this more human, how to be more human, more authentic, more transparent. And again, this can be for nobody else but yourself. This does not need to be showcased, but in a personal way, uh, if you can show up even more human, it sets you apart from, things that are automated. And that's what a robot is. A robot is automated. A robot goes by instructions. A robot repeats what it's been given in history. It does not create something new. And so the more we're able to lean into our creativity, the more human we are and can become, and the more connected we can be, the more experiential, like you were saying. And we can even like categorize it as what my friend likes to say, film rules. you
Yeah.
know, you only get 30, what is it, 33 shots in a
Mm,
roll of film, 36.
right.
If you're going to have 36, what are you going to take?
Mm,
How are you going to show up? And we have 30 days in a month, we have 365 days in a year. We have how many seconds in a day? If we were going to take an overview, a bird's eye view of that, what does it look like? How
yeah.
would you like to compose that? And
Mm,
and there's an art in the question too. There's an art in the process, and it's the becoming. It's not just the final result. The final result is this is like what we made, right? The final photograph, like this is my 40 over 40 portrait,
mm,
right over here. And it's like, but the becoming of it. And then this is the final
mm,
documentation of the work that we did in the play space.
mm. So
And
you're
then
capturing all the small moments, and then you have that
yes,
final pro
yes.
product that kind of evolves and
Final-ish, because
yeah.
this is just a milestone. This is a timestamp. Now
Mm,
it's up to me what I'm going to do with this. The person in this photograph, I have to speak with her. I have to come to her and I have to make true and good on, the woman that I was in here and she's a frame of reference, a
mm.
reference point to who I am becoming,
Ooh, I
and this is
love
not the
that.
end all be all, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
not the end. This is not the only. There will be more, and that's an exciting part too. To then be
yeah.
able to see it as a collection, not just individually. So they should be able to hold their own, but also be like textured into a fabric.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a timestamp of who you were in that moment
Exactly.
and a reference point. I love that, and we'll see what happens in the future, right? You get to
Exactly.
decide who you're becoming and who you become.
Exactly. And a little bit of that can take the emotional out of it. You get less critical and microscopic. It's like, okay, no, this is one thing. And she is beautiful. And
Yeah.
she's not perfect.
Yeah, and you're
And
embracing it that it's
yeah,
not about perfection, it's about your humanness.
correct.
Yeah, I love that. And I just wanna go back and I wanna say I really found it powerful that you said that technology and AI and all of that, the filters, all of it, it's just a tool. So it's really neutral, and how you use it really is a reflection of yourself, your insecurities, or what it is that you want to make of it. While at the same time, being able to be playful and creative and using it in ways that are fun and useful, but also capturing, like you said, those 30 moments or those 30 things that matter is really powerful. And I've got into the habit lately, even with my family. I do take photos and I don't post them. I'm not altering them. I just want to remember. I just want to
Exactly.
capture the memory because I feel like if I don't take the photo, so many things are happening and I might forget. So it's a nice reminder. I'll look back and I it'll bring back the feeling or the emotion just by looking at it of whatever was happening at that time, and that is the only purpose of me
Yeah.
taking the photo in
Yeah.
that moment. I've got some
Exactly.
photos that I need to look really good, like my headshot and, or a holiday picture maybe. I need those to look a little bit, a little bit more perfect maybe, but just having something that just evokes an emotion for you is really powerful just by what you're, just looking at it.
Exactly. And that's the human element. You lived it, you experienced it. This is a little capture of it. So later, when you're in a different mindset, you can look back and remember the lived human experience that that photograph gave to you. And it's the emotional connection. That's what made it human. That was a perfect photograph you took. I didn't have to see
Yeah.
the photograph. And I know it
Yeah.
was a perfect, and it did its job. And it wasn't
Exactly.
about the photograph, it was about the experience, it was about the connections, it was about the joy and the people you were with and the ambiance, you know?
Right. Yeah.
All these layers of art, and that's, like, one of my words for the year, artistry. Just being able to see the different layers and nuances and textures that come into and make, this photograph. And a cell phone is, maybe it's not the best camera, but it's the camera you have on hand, and
Yeah.
it's
You know
powerful.
what? And when you look at it from that perspective, it brings so much more joy. I mean, for me anyway, it just
Yes.
brings me so much more joy. It takes away the pressure of that expectation that it needs to look a certain way. And you can just really, appreciate the experience and the memory of that experience.
Exactly. Exactly. Bringing the human back into it.
Bringing the humanness back into it. I love it. I love it. So Jennifer, thank you for this conversation. I've loved it and for the way that you really help people feel seen and how you've really given me and I think our audience just a different, more in-depth perspective of just how we can see ourselves in a different way and the power that brings to each of us. So thank you for this conversation. I've
Oh,
really
thank you.
enjoyed it and I hope to continue it someday. But for everyone listening, can you just share where they can maybe find some of your work and where they connect with you?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on and for this conversation. And I do hope it helped. Thank you. Thank you for that. You can find me at villagestudioPhotos.com, photos with an S. And you can find me on Instagram. I like to be there. It's a very, very picture friendly platform. You can find me at VSPhotos_NJ, and look forward to connect.
Awesome, awesome, great. And if today's episode stirred up something in you, maybe about, relationships being more aligned or just about visibility or your identity or about wanting to be seen in a different way or being seen as your true authentic self, then please, like this episode, share it with someone you know. Reach out to me, lifecoach@odettecoronel.com, and let me know what it was about the episode that resonated with you. And until next time, remember that your life and your love are yours to design. If today's episode described you or your relationship, then this is your moment. You don't need more information. You need a new way of living, choosing, and relating. And that's the work I do with individuals and couples. If you're ready to stop repeating the same patterns and start designing your life and relationships intentionally, visit the link in the show notes and book a complimentary relationship and life audit. Remember, your life and your love are yours to design.